recorded messages, and autographs, all on sale at wizardworldvirtual.com. Those will be all week. So if you're just catching this on a replay, no worries. Know that you can always sign on there and find out what cool things we have coming up, because we have some amazing stuff dropping soon. Literally coming this week, we've got Stargate, which is Dolph Lundgren, even more insane. All of this is next week. It's going to be huge. Also, don't forget to check out some of the signed memorabilia and works of art from our favorite artists and vendors from previous virtual experiences and physical conventions, all at Wizard World Vault. Now, ladies and gents, it's my pleasure to bring to this virtual stage WUXIA, the entertainment genre you already love but didn't know. You guys are about to get your heads blown. This is going to be so amazing. I can't wait for you guys to hear these subject matter experts break it down for why you know this genre, why you love this genre, and will continue to love it even more with the work that they're producing. Let's bring out here, first and foremost, CEO, founder of Immortal Studios. Let's hear it for Peter Shiao. Peter! Woohoo! What's going on? Hey, I love it. I love it. We're going to keep the Immortal Studios love going. We got associate editor and action director, Ching, coming out. What's up, Ching? Almost there. There we go. There we go. Hello, hello, hello. Next up, now she is an investor of Immortal Studios, which is absolutely the coolest thing ever, but is also widely known martial arts film star, star of the sequel to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. She was in Wu Assassins, that's on Netflix. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Miss Juju Chan. Hello, hello, hello.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And last but certainly not least, rounding out this panel here, you might know him through YouTube. He's also a translator and an absolute fan of Chinese fantasy. Let's hear it for Jeremy Deathblade. Bye. Hello. Yo.
Hi. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Oh my goodness. The pleasure is truly, truly mine. I'm so happy to kick it with you guys. We're going to jump right into this, right? Okay, so the genre that has brought us all together is WUXIA, right? Now, this sounds like it sounds so comforting just to say it, but what is WUXIA? Peter, break it down for me, please.
So I think one way of saying it is that WUXIA is like the spirit and soul of Eastern culture. It's really, it was born out of a time when people were oppressed, people were taken advantage of, and then the heroes emerged who provided safety, hope, and transcendence. So WUXIA literally means the martial hero. It started off in real life where people who practice Eastern martial arts became incredibly powerful. Some even became enlightened. When they saw bad stuff go down, they would step up and do something about it. So it started like real live events and stories, and it became legends. Legends became folklore, and when it came modern time, it became the stuff of stories. So a lot of writers write about WUXIA heroes, and then the books became TV shows, they became movies. In the past several decades, they became games. But there's this really thousands of year lineage, and it's been the defining element of Eastern entertainment. Of course, we know the movies that have been associated with, but it's a tradition that we're really ascribing to, and we're rebooting for the 21st century. So that's a very, very brief synopsis on WUXIA, but it's more than a genre. For us, it's a way of life. It's an
right. Yes, yes, yes. Now, when you talk about rebooting it, let's talk about Immortal Studios for a hot second. How exactly is Immortal Studios bringing WUXIA into the 21st century?
Well, first of all, when you watch WUXIA movies, it's very easy to think that this stuff just happened from thousands of years ago. It's stuff that doesn't have anything to do with real life. So the stories that we're telling has a completely modern backdrop. It's the world that we live in today. So we're making that relevant and interesting. Another thing that we're doing, because WUXIA as of late just became about senseless fighting. It's no longer about the right fight. So we're bringing that virtue, we're bringing that transcendence back to it. And we're also bringing WUXIA back to the transformational origins of martial arts. So it's kind of like the ancient and the future and the present moment meeting together. So, this is just one of the things that we're doing.
I love that. Okay, so for everyone else, I want to get kind of a feel for what was your entrance to wuxia as a culture, as an art form. Juju, can we start with you?
Mhm. Well, to me, I started watching wuxia films when I was a kid in Hong Kong. There are a lot of wuxia films, and it just inspired me a lot in learning martial arts and being so cool. You know how they have all these different superhuman abilities when you're watching wuxia films. People can fly in the air, all those famous bamboo forest chasing scenes. And of course, one of my favorite movie, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's just, and every time when I watched wuxia films, they're all so visually stunning.
Yes.
No matter it's like cinematography, the fight scenes, the costume, everything. To me, it's very different. There is no other genre similar to. It's really unique. So so when I was a little girl, I besides watching Bruce Lee's, Jackie Chan, I love watching all the wuxia films and copying their wuxia moves, trying to fly in a house.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Jerry, what about you, man?
Well,
how did you get involved with the wuxia genre?
There's a dual answer to the question. I'll give you the first wuxia movie that I ever saw, and I'm by wuxia in this. What I mean is like the costume type where they're flying around and stuff, as opposed to more like traditional action movies. And that movie was Magnificent Bodyguards. It's a Jackie Chan movie from 1978 that is really wild. That's awesome. That was back when I was just obsessed with Jackie Chan. And that movie is very different, generally speaking, from most of his other movies. So when I saw that, I was like, what is going on here? It has Star Wars music in it. Like they're jumping off of cliffs with, they're running the film backward. I was confused by it, to be honest. But then Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came along. That was basically the movie that started it all for me. I found it super interesting, and it led me down the path of reading as many translations as I could possibly find online, because I at that time I didn't know a thing about the Chinese language. And then years later, it also kind of drove me into actually starting to study Mandarin. And then I moved to China, and then I eventually started translating this stuff for a living. And it basically all goes back to Crouching Tiger. That was definitely a really big thing in my life. And I think for a lot of Westerners who weren't familiar with that stuff, it really presented it in a very just amazing way that kind of sucked everybody in and got everybody interested in it.
It's so true. So true. It was so authentic and honest, both in the presentation and the beauty. It was absolutely amazing. I love it. I love it. Gene, what about you? What was your first entrance into the genre that is wuxia?
It was the midnight movies and going up to Chinatown, San Francisco. I was studying Kung Fu, and me and my Kung Fu brothers would make weekly trips up to the Great Star Theater just to see what the latest flick was. And this was all the kind of classic Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest stuff. So, I mean, I remember like The Incredible Shattering Sword and Avenging Eagle, some of these really early ones that were just mind-blowing to me. And, I mean, being Asian American, there really weren't a lot of Asians in media,
right,
about it. And so it was just kaiju, watching Kung Fu movies, and so that really, they were my role models in many ways, and I just loved sort of the funky reverence they had about trying to achieve their storytelling, and I mean, the effects were cheesy, but being a Kung Fu practitioner, the Kung Fu was superb.
I love that. That's awesome. And obviously, we've spoken highly of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Juju, you were a part of the sequel. How did it feel to be a part of this IP, this movie franchise that people fell so in love with, to get an opportunity to be a part of that? What was that like?
Wow, it's a great honor to be in that film and being able to work with, Master Yuen Wo-ping. He did a lot of wuxia films as well. So working with all the legends on the film, it's amazing, and I learned a lot. It was one of my first feature film that I did, and I was very happy with my role playing Super Dachi. First time really dressed up in a wuxia costume, doing wireworks, flying in the mid-air, and it was so cool. And this whole, because I played one of the warriors along with Donnie Yen's character. So this brotherhood, although I'm into this, sort of like a brotherhood thing, honor, you fight for honor. That's really like a theme for a lot of wuxia films. So it's great being part of it, and I would love to do more.
That's awesome. I got to give a shout out to all the people that are watching right now. We literally have folks from Ottawa, from New Jersey, Massachusetts, Oregon, Boston, the Ukraine, people in California. We've got people all over the place. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to really kind of illustrate how, as the title says, we already love wuxia, we just don't know it. So what are some of the places that we've seen wuxia entertainment, but did not know that that's what it was? Obviously, Crouching Tiger, you've given that one. So that's a clear, definitive, like, oh, that is wuxia. Okay. But there are other places that we've seen it that we didn't recognize. And I want to know what do you guys qualify or classify as wuxia, but you didn't know it?
I would say The Matrix.
Okay.
I would say The Matrix has all the classic ingredients of wuxia. There's becoming the hero. So Neo goes on a journey of self-discovery. He goes through a spiritual transformation and discovers his inner power and skill. He has a master, Morpheus, and he has a big baddie that he has to defeat.
That's true.
So it's a classic wuxia structure, and not to mention, including all the classic fighting, very, very clearly East Asian martial arts that was included. So hands down is a classic wuxia film.
And that was choreographed by Ping, right? Yeah. So that's
the people assisting Keanu, they all came from Hong Kong cinema. Yep. So it's got all of the elements. So I would say The Matrix, hands down.
Okay. Are there any others?
I would say that now I'm going to qualify this in a second, but Star Wars is definitely something that has a lot of wuxia elements. I have a video on my YouTube channel talking about Star Wars and wuxia, and I'm not trying to say that Star Wars is wuxia, because it's not.
Right.
But it does have a lot of elements, depending obviously on which movies you're talking about.
Right.
I remember seeing I was at San Diego Comic-Con in the early 2000s, I think, and I was at the Kung Fu Clip Marathon, and I remember seeing a clip from a kind of obscure wuxia movie that I was told, I can't verify this, but I was told that Lucas actually pointed to this fight scene and said, I want to have this fight scene for the Duel of the Fates battle. And go to my YouTube channel and look for the Star Wars video. I have it in there, and I have it next to each other, the Star Wars and the wuxia movie, and it's like beat for beat almost. So it's a complicated topic, but there are definitely a lot of wuxia elements, whether it's the fighting or whether it's other parts like the master-apprentice relationship or the kind of underworld elements. There's just so much stuff that if you are a Star Wars fan, you'll definitely recognize a lot of the stuff that we all know and love from wuxia.
I love that. Now, I mean, it goes to say, like, obviously you've named some fairly serious movies. Does it cross over into other genres? Can you have, romantic comedies or comedies have wuxia elements?
I just saw this romantic comedy from Korea called My Mighty Princess. You can get it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And it's a goofy rom-com, but it's total wuxia. I mean, they even say
awesome.
They're part of the Wulin and stuff. I mean, this girl has this amazing kung fu powers, and she's kind of the outsider, and she's trying to romance this hockey player. But it's like it is spread to so many other genres. And I think it's kind of tricky because you take, for example, like the samurai genre. I think of Chanbara, the samurai films. That Star Wars has kind of a deeper connection to that. And I would make that a distinction between that and wuxia. Wuxia has more of a Chinese root, although there can be crossovers when you have like the blind swordsman versus the one-armed swordsman.
Right.
So it blends with other genres very nicely and very elegantly, and it's a very gray zone. I mean, you take, for example, Matrix. I mean, Matrix, at one point, Neo says, you know, I know Kung Fu.
Right.
In connection. Whereas other films like say, Wolf Warrior, which stars Wu Jing, which is one of our great wushu champions who became a mega star. I wouldn't really call Wolf Warrior a wuxia film. You know, it's really have that connection to wude, to the ethics of that world so well. You know, so it's very gray.
Got you. I mean, nuance is everything. So that does make sense. What were you going to say, Jeremy?
Said one more thing I'm going to throw in there, which is spaghetti westerns. I mean, there are now people might be like, "What? How could a western be like a wuxia film?" And it's not the fight scenes, but if you watch things like Man with No, or it's My Name Is Nobody, I think, Once Upon a Time in the West, the original Django movie, or even the Man with No Name trilogy or whatever, there's no swords, they're not flying around, but in terms of like the drama, the tension, the the themes of like brotherhood or whatever, all the lone wandering hero kind of thing. Some of those movies, those spaghetti western movies, to me are so wuxia that if you took the plot and basically applied that plot to some people with the right clothing, with swords, and doing some kung fu and flying around, it would perfectly correlate. So if you're a Clint Eastwood fan of those old movies, check out some, especially the Shaw brothers as well. I'm also a huge fan of those, and some of them, to me, I'm actually curious how much influence went which way, because I know that the writer Gulong had a lot of influence from foreign media in terms of movies and other books. I'm curious about it. I don't really know, but I definitely have seen a lot of crossover. For instance, in the movie Magic Blade, there is the main character of Magic Blade has basically a poncho like the Clint Eastwood character, and he has his sword strapped to his side, and he kind of like flips it around and stuff. So there's definitely a lot of crossover there.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And honestly, I think Kill Bill really showcases the correlation between the two. If you look at Volume 1 and Volume 2, they're very similar in their story because that's the context that was being shown. Chad Garrity from Ottawa, Canada wants to know, would John Wick series be considered wuxia at all?
I would say a version of it.
Okay.
Because wuxia, I think, comes in so many different sizes and colors.
Right.
My sense is that wuxia is actually a big tent. It's a really, really big tent with many, many different influence. Fighting styles from realism, and from a practitioner or from a fantasy point of view, how prominent is qi? How prominent are supernatural elements? So it's actually a big tent. So within that big tent, I would say John Wick is within the more realism school.
I got you.
Branch of wuxia.
Yeah. Would you say that properties like Kung Fu Panda and even Power Rangers exhibit aspects of wuxia that kids can recognize and see at an early stage?
Absolutely. If you look at the engines, first of all, I think wuxia is almost from a genre or story point of view, it's kind of an engine, and it's kind of universal and global. But where it comes into the language of action and the poetry of action and the style of action, the pursuit of this kind of physical excellence that goes beyond normal, this is where I think a lot of the wuxia elements come over. I would venture to say that American cinema, Hollywood films, was transformed somewhere in the early 2000s. After Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Hollywood movies took a completely drastic difference. Just go look at Charlie's Angels.
Right.
Go look at the Three Musketeers that emerged after Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and The Matrix. Everybody has been doing wuxia, has that kind of stylized fighting ever since.
That's so true. Oh my God, that's so true.
Borrow none.
Right.
Just go study the differences. So I would say wuxia is now the official engine, but now I think the opportunity is to bring the whole thing over in its authentic form, not a bastardized or stolen version. Let's bring the whole thing over.
Just actually do it. Like if you're going to do it, do it. I love that.
Spot on. Let's not steal it. Let's not, I think there's a new term out there. It's called genre appropriation.
There you go.
No more genre appropriation.
There you go.
Represent.
Yes. Okay, so in that same vein, actually, I want to ask this question, and Juju and Gene, I know you guys can throw in on this one. How does the wuxia philosophy, or what does it mean to a martial artist? What is it that wuxia does to speak to the growth of a martial artist?
To me, well, the entire theme of constantly improving oneself. I'm sure it's something that's influenced me to strive to become a better martial artist. And the stories tells us how it's not easy, but it's important to strive for improvement constantly, to strive to be better both in skills and in a person. So that philosophy definitely helped me to become a better person than I am right now, and in terms of my skills.
I love that. I love that. Gene?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key with wuxia is with the Chinese martial arts, because it's so there's so many different versions and so many different styles and so clan based that we don't really have an established code of ethics that everybody follows.
Mm-hmm.
There are separate codes within different clans, right, with different families, different villages, different lineages. But wuxia describes that ethical basis. You know, that's wuda, that's what we call, you know, literally the martial ethics. And so the way, you know, it's not like it's written like the 10 Commandments. Instead, our ethical code is transmitted through these stories. And these stories go really far back. You know, you get to these 12th century novels and classics that first start building the genre, you know, the foundation blocks, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Outlaws of the Marsh, even Journey to the West. These are these chapter stories, apart from their adventures, always had these sort of moral lessons. And the genre of wuxia goes to sort of include that. I think also as a martial artist, one of the things that wuxia does, there's sort of a distinction, there's sort of a wuxia world. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's a community that we call the Wulin or the Jianghu, which are like this sort of this outside community of heroes and villains that manipulate the world and travel through the world. And so that as a martial artist, you kind of become that too, you know, you're
of course
away, you know, and that Juju and even Peter can do this, where, you know, you meet another martial artist and you can tell right away, you know, you can get that sense.
Be careful when you shake somebody's hand because you're being sized up.
Right.
The truth is out there. I get it.
I love having these conversations with Gene, is because my theory is that this actually exists. There is a Wulin martial world out there. The beauty of wuxia, which I really, really love, is that these mythological figures, these people, it is an unbroken lineage. Mm-hmm. I talk about this a lot, that having meet these masters atop ancient mountains, you know, writing calligraphy and poetry, getting drunk and then practicing like the most amazing martial arts you would ever seen, and hearing their clothes like go swish when they move, is that some of this stuff is very, very stylized, but there's an authenticity and a realness there. And it actually exists. It does exist.
That's amazing. I love it.
It's very built into the books. So take, for example,
right.
You know, or the movies or everything. Take, for example, Five Deadly Venoms. Mm-hmm. Right? There's one character, Toad, right, who has the iron skin. And a lot of people are like, does that make any sense, right? Well, actually, there's a book called the 72 Consummate Shaolin Art Techniques. It's a very classic martial arts training where there's all these different sort of hardening skills and light qigong. And a lot of it's kind of fantastic, kind of mythical. But in that, there's a toad skin skill. Wow. And it's a darn body thing. And actually, some of the other characters like Centipede, you know, being able to crawl and the lizard, those come straight out of that book. And so, and even though that book, some of the training techniques are fantastical,
it's still rooted though.
Yeah, so they're rooted.
Yeah.
So the line between what is fiction and what is fact gets really blurry sometimes, especially like when Peter says you see one of these great masters do something that's just ridiculous.
You're like, did that really happen? Really do like a double take. But I think that's why this genre is so amazing, because it really speaks to our desire to be a better version of ourselves.
Yes.
And these masters, they tap into this immense potential we feel within inside. And that's why I think wuxia is an amazing thing to lean into this moment, because we all want to be a better version of ourselves. And this genre, this storytelling, this tradition says that you can if you work it. So you don't have to be bitten by a radioactive spider. You don't have to be a multi-billionaire playboy. It works if you work it. And
you can just do it.
That's like the beauty of this genre, because it speaks to that yearning for that we all have inside.
I love that. Peter, you got a shout out. Kevin Foster is giving you a shout out from his place in Sequoia National Park. Says you're looking good. Says you're looking good. Okay, so going back through some of these other.
I gotta give a shout out back to him because this is a man. He is a Shah. This guy rode the Great Wall on his bike.
Wow.
Himself in the 80s.
Oh, that's awesome.
As an American, going to China as Captain America and riding the bike. That's an act of heroism. So
that is
right back at you, Kevin.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so we've got a couple of different shout outs from different movies that people have watched. Mike Baker from Boston said that his favorite movie was Burning of the Red Lotus Monastery. Have you guys seen that? Okay, so lots of head nods on that one. And he also asked, Juju, how did it feel to go from watching wuxia movies as a child to starring in wuxia films? Is that like a full circle kind of piece for you?
Really, when I was a kid, I would dream to, if I can do that, if I can be her or be this person, it would be wonderful. It would be so fun, so cool. But I really didn't know how to become an actress. I didn't really have guidance of how. I just really lucky to be able to somehow become an actress now and being able to do all the things that I dreamt about doing when I was a kid. So yeah, it's I'm very lucky.
Juju, who do you look up to? Like when you think about like martial heroines, like we're big about Xiaonü, like the martial heroine. Like who do you look up to when you think like who's your? Obviously, you're one. You are one yourself.
Of course, I was going to say.
Thank you. Well, there's so many very good martial artists and actors that I look up to. I mean, definitely Bruce Lee is my icon, and Jackie Chan, and Michelle Yao in the wuxia genre because she did a lot of wuxia films as well, and Jet Li and Donnie Yen as well. I think I have a lot to learn from each of them. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so this is kind of a alley-oop question. Damian Buer, who's a buddy of mine, asked, what are your dream projects you would love to make? And I think this is a perfect alley-oop to talk about more of what Immortal Studios is going to be doing coming soon. So who wants to jump in on that one?
Okay, I'll jump in.
There we go.
I think has been horribly sort of misrepresented in martial arts films in general is that lack of authenticity. And so, for example, the Wang Fei Hong genre was it's over 100 Wang Fei Hong movies, and he's almost never doing Hongga, which was his style. That's the style that he's most famous for. He's usually Shu or doing some other thing. Jackie had him doing drunken style, and so I'd like to see that because there's these traditions of martial arts that are very valid and extant. I'd like to see that bleed over. That's something we're really trying to do with the Adept and all of these properties is interject authentic techniques. I mean, when it comes to Shaolin, for example, my lineage, there is a body of core traditional Shaolin forms. Mm-hmm. So we try to integrate those moves into the choreography of what we're doing, and that spreads to all the as we move into swordsman stories and Wudangshan. Wudang, Wu-Tang Clan. As we move into that group, we want to use and represent authentic Wudang moves, and really kind of not only just have the martial arts as being, most of the martial arts now in films are modern wushu, I mean, even, Donnie Yen's latest Ip Man one, Ip Man was a Wing Chun guy, but he, for the movies, he's got to do wushu, and Donnie Yen's a wushu guy.
Right.
I mean, one of the things I got to give props with Donnie Yen is he changes his style in every film. He looks very different. Jackie, he does great stuff, but you always see a Jackie Chan fight.
Right.
Crazy acrobatics. Donnie's going to look different in every film, and he really does a lot to make his characters look like they're doing the style they're representing.
I love that.
In that spirit, we want to do very much the same thing with all of our properties. I just want to be authentic.
Of course.
And if we're going to preserve the story, let's preserve the meat and heart of it too.
There you go.
Look, I have to jump in on that question because because I was born into wuxia, by virtue of my father Xiao Yi, who's considered one of the legendary creators in the genre. In fact, right behind me are half of the wall are all of his books. So when this person asks, like, what are your favorites? Well, I love them so much that I created Immortal Studios as an homage to the entire genre. So we have many, many loves, and we've created an interconnected universe, kind of like Marvel style, but I would say, because this predates Marvel, we're not like trying to imitate Marvel, but it's creating a big tent for all of these stories to exist together in an interconnected way. So there isn't one that I super love. I have a personal one that I love. It's called The Chronicles of the Immortal Swordsman, which is going to be a upcoming title in March. We'll be announcing then. We're talking about it for the first time here. So we love them all. We love the genre so much that we created a world of them. So if we had our say, we would be in production over the next 100 years and not stop.
I love that. I love that. Now I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, Jeremy, because we haven't heard from you in a second. So when it comes to WUXIA stories, and that's something that you kind of fell in love with specifically, what makes a good WUXIA story to you? What is it that really kind of resonates in your readership to a WUXIA story?
Well, for me personally, I really find myself drawn toward the sort of outcast type characters that you often find in WUXIA. They're usually the characters aren't part of the system. They're not part of the government. They don't work for the police. I mean, occasionally they do, but there's often these wandering heroes that exist in their own world. They have their own friendships, and that really always gets to me. And there's also something that I did a video about this on my channel, where there's this thing about sworn brotherhood, whether it's outright actual swearing or kowtowing or whatever, or whether it kind of happens naturally. And that's another thing that always gets at me. So for instance, in the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 2 that Juju is in, there basically her character is introduced in this like tavern setting. And there's a couple other people that are introduced as being like just wandering martial artists, and they kind of without knowing each other or talking about it, they all just kind of jump into this fight scene and then they're friends. And that kind of thing happens in WUXIA all the time, where people will meet, they don't know anything about each other, and they're like, you know what, let's be brothers. And then they'll live and die for each other, that kind of thing. So those types of scenarios always kind of tug at my heartstrings. And over the years, while the cool fighting and special effects or wire work or whatever it is, that stuff I really like. But over the years, as I've been getting older, I've found myself a lot more drawn to the stories and the characters in the movies. So, you know, in the old Shaw Brothers movies, they didn't have all the special effects they do nowadays. But for some reason, a lot of times those movies, to me, come across as being more compelling than the CGI stuff. So anyway, I think that's the stuff, whether it's the novels or the books, that is kind of transcends time. I think that's kind of what Peter is getting at. It doesn't have to take place necessarily in ancient China. It doesn't have to have people flying even to be WUXIA. Those friendships and those bonds that they create are something that you'll find in all the authors and across all time in this genre, in my opinion.
I love that. I mean, even
there's a really good point to it. I want to say this. WUXIA is not about fighting. So Jeremy is spot on. That if you're just talking about nonstop fighting, you're not talking about WUXIA. You're talking about something else.
No, that's really well said. And it makes it even more apparent how much of an influencer WUXIA is, because that same setup is what we have at the beginning of Hamilton, where it's four guys that meet in a bar and somebody says the right thing and everybody's like, yeah, we're friends now. Like, this is just what we're going to do. And we're going to move forward like that. So again, seeing how influential this genre is beautiful. Juju, when it comes to fighting in movies, do you do all of your own stunts? And is it something that is important to have that martial arts training to do these stunts?
Yes, it's important if you, as an action actress, to do it all by yourself. And because I don't like to have a stunt double, because I want to present the way that I, move and how the character. It's different when someone's doubling you. So it's just like Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee. They did basically when they were young. They did all of their on-screen fighting themselves, and they have their own particular style. And that's something that I want my audience to see, my own style. And it's important. That's why I keep training. And you can only do the best when you keep training and inventing new, putting skills into your work. Yeah.
Of course. Now we are running low on time, so I apologize. I do want to take an opportunity to talk about Immortal Studios a little bit more. Already, Immortal Studios has one title out, The Adept, which you guys had a very successful Kickstarter for last summer. And the first issue of it is available. If you go to wizardworldvault.com, you guys can check that out. Can you tell me a little bit more about The Adept as a series and some of the story concepts that, kind of it came from wuxia culture?
Well, this is a really big conversation, something that Gene and I can talk a lot about. I created the story for The Adept as an homage to Shaolin.
Mm-hmm.
Shaolin is really literally the birthplace of Eastern Kung Fu. It happened when Bodhidharma traveled from India into China. He was met by the locals. They practiced together. They proved themselves to each other. And when his style of meditation and movement, and bringing kind of something called dhyana, which is a meditative consciousness, into physical movement, and it spawned the legend of Kung Fu. So Shaolin, all the stuff, karate and taekwondo, a lot of the Eastern Kung Fu and martial arts flowed from Shaolin. So Shaolin is kind of the big backstory of The Adept, of transcendent Kung Fu. And we wanted to tell this story through the experience of Amy, who's a young girl who encounters this legendary Shaolin master in her dreams. So it's a little bit of an homage to Kung Fu that I think a lot of people know about in the West. And then this story concept was married with two excellent writers in Charlie Stickney and Tasha Hua, who breathed life and soul into these characters, with the authentic direction of a real Shaolin adept himself, Ching, bringing that authentic reality to it, and then it just spawned it. So we're still very early stages of the story. We're in fact crafting it. We're finishing the first arc right now. Mm-hmm. We're going to see Amy become an adept to Shaolin Kung Fu in the first arc, and there'll be a few surprises, but ultimately it's about bringing the reality of this transformational work back into the conversation.
I love it. I'm not going to lie. As a comic book reader and creator myself, I adore this series. So I'm telling you right now, you're going to want to jump all over this. Not now, but right now, get this book. Before we get out of here, and I'm going to start with Jeremy, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to let everybody know where they can find you on social media. And if possible, what's something that you have coming up that we should be looking out for?
Well, you can go to my website, which is jeremybai.com, and there are links to all my social media, my YouTube channel, Twitter, and everything, as well as all of my works. I do have an original novel that's coming out in about a month, but it's not really wuxia. So if I was going to recommend something, I would recommend this, which is, can you see it? Yeah, Righteous Blood, Ruthless Blades. It's not, okay, there we go.
There we go.
It's a tabletop role-playing game that just came out from Osprey Games. I think it just came out in North America. It's been out in Europe for a couple weeks, and it's really a passion project of mine that I've been working on for about over 2 years now. And it's just a very traditional wuxia setting, actually in ancient China. So it's not modern, but it is like Dungeons and Dragons. Sit down with your friends, paper and pen, and there's just a huge amount of work that went into that. So it is available anywhere that you buy books, whether Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Drive-Thru RPG, you can find it. Check that out. It's I think, to date, probably the most authentic in terms of being traditional, old school wuxia that you can get for role-playing games.
Nice. Now, Juju, obviously you are filming something. You can't necessarily say what it is, which I appreciate, but we have some more work coming from you, yes?
Yes. Yeah, I'm currently in Bangkok shooting an action film. I can't say what it is, but yeah, I have more stuff coming out. And if you want to check out my works, check out my work on Netflix, Wu Assassins, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, and recently have another film called Jiu-Jitsu came out as well. Nice. And for my social media, it's Juju Chan Szeto for everything. Yeah.
There we go. Somebody did ask if there was a second season of Wu Assassins on the horizon. Do you know? I don't want to get you in trouble. Do you know?
Stay tuned.
Okay. All right. There we go. That's the best answer. That's the best answer. There we go. Gene, what about you, sir?
Well, I used to be the publisher of a print magazine, Kung Fu Tai Chi, but unfortunately the pandemic killed that. But but we still have KungFuMagazine.com. And I also do a lot of reporting for Den of Geek.
Excellent.
You can find me on Immortal. I mean, you can find me under social media under my name.
There we go. And last but certainly not least, Peter.
Well, look, we've been talking a lot about Immortal Studios. We are a company that's devoted to rebooting the genre for the 21st century. We invite you to join us on our website. It's immortal-studios.com. On it, you'll find our links. We're always running different campaigns. We're also soliciting people from the general public who love what we're doing to become a shareholder in our company. But I would say, go to immortal-studios.com. You'll see everything about us. You'll learn about our team, our storyverse, and everything can start from there.
I love it. Absolutely. Once again, I'm Victor Dangerous, the hardest working man in comics. To all the fans that are watching live or watching later on a replay on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, make sure you sign up for some of the paid exclusives that are coming up. Like I said, we've got Stargate. I think Atlantis is the key one. We've got Dolph Lundgren coming up. We've got so many amazing panels that are going to be dropping soon. It's going to be awesome. Check those out, wizardworldvirtual.com. And also, if you are ready to read The Adept, and you should be, trust me, go to wizardworldvault.com. You want to get this book. It's beautiful. It's 48 pages. Okay, so it's huge. It is a thick read. It is a gorgeous read. Beautiful looking book. I can't co-sign it enough. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you for really expressing your love of what WUXIA is and letting us all know that we really kind of share in this love already. I want to thank Wizard World for bringing us all together. One time before we get out of here, say bye to the fans. Thank you guys so very much for watching. We will see you guys next time. Bye.
Take care.